All right, everybody, let's try this over again. I'm going to try to record for a second time now. Here we go. It is 2:01 a.m. Central Time on the 2nd of November, 2022. It's late night here in the United States. I've got an update for you. A big earthquake has struck off the west coast of the United States. I need to show you what I'm looking at here with the display capture. Here we are. Several hundred miles off the west coast of California, right north of the U.S. border. There's the U.S. border with Mexico. Significant sized earthquake. The first reported earthquake out here in years. And I need to show you actually how many times earthquakes have struck out here before, but they were deleted by the professionals. So for instance, I marked this out here on January 1st, 2018, 5.3 earthquake struck out here. Then it got deleted. The next day, I took Athena, Athena, the oil company's feeds that they use, and showed the public that a 5 was reported out there. And imagine my surprise when that was passworded and turned off to the public after I shared it within hours. Happened before that, though. A hidden 5.7 earthquake out here back on September 12th, 2017. Again, it gets reported by the Europeans, and then the USGS even reported it. Then they deleted it, said it was a mistake. Happened in March of 2017. 6.1 earthquake struck out here. You see all these? These are undersea mounts. Each one of these is an undersea volcano. Each one that hit, they then deleted, and the public never found out about it. Then the Obama quakes happened. We call them the Obama quakes because they were 6 and 7.0 range earthquakes that struck in the Hawaiian island chain every time he took off and landed on vacation as president, going to Hawaii. Then his daughter went down to Mexico for spring break, and the day she landed, about a half hour after she landed, the 7.0 earthquake struck in Mexico, and they had put out that warning for a month beforehand down in Mexico to warn the public that it was going to happen on that day at noon, and it happened at 12:01 on that day that they warned for. Now, it wasn't an earthquake warning. They said it was going to be a drill, but then a real earthquake hit. It was when Obama's daughter landed down there. Missile defense system earthquakes, that's what those are. 100% on that, by the way. That's not even up for debate. Now, these out here are different. These are volcanic-related earthquakes, most likely, but I say most likely because I have to show you something I just posted over on my community page. Over on my YouTube community page, we'll go to Dutch Sense, click on community, take a look at the screen. This is the view of the nearest undersea mount, which is 55 miles to the northwest of the current earthquake epicenter, but I just showed you the earthquake epicenter on Google Earth, which contains hundreds of undersea mounts all the way around the earthquake epicenter itself. Here's the one that struck today. Here's the one 55 miles away. Here's a bunch of smaller ones you see. Again, these are better imaged than we get to a blurry sonar imagery where the earthquake epicenter is, but then right next to it, there's a bunch more, like about 10 miles to the east. So there are some here. You can see the shadows of it, but again, that's poor sonar imagery. There's likely something going on there, but there's something else there. Check it out. See this? I'll read you my description. Also worth mentioning is the undersea cables which go through the region. Might just be chance on that. We shall see. So coming out of LA, look, and San Diego, but mainly, or LA, north of LA up at Vandenberg, and south down to San Diego, kind of goes down to the south, so you can cross off San Diego. I stand corrected, but LA goes out and over the green one, goes out and over and across. Then just north of LA, that's coming up on the coast of California. Then you get up here, and you have coming out of the Bay Area, a few coming down, but that's going down far to the north. These 4 are going across the area. Here is LA. Let me show you. I'm just going to draw a line from it. So here's LA Basin, and then they have it coming out of here, which is Lompoc. They have the offshore rigs right there, the offshore oil rigs. And we go right across that. I'm going to take a straight line and just draw it from right in here. We're going to draw it out to Hawaii. It goes out to Oahu, by the way. So it's look, that's pretty far off, I'd say. Again, I'm going to draw to Oahu so we can actually. There's Maui. There's Oahu. I don't know where it's coming on shore on Oahu, but wow, hold on. No. Oh shit. God dang, look how close that is. Look how close you saw it. Again, that's not I drew it straight to from where it's coming offshore here, straight across to Oahu. It's right where the undersea cable is. Oh shit. No wonder they're hiding. It is what it is. I'm going to show you and tell you whatever I find. It is what it is. You'd have to tell me that's chance. And how do I know it goes to Oahu? Look. You can zoom in and see. Here's the big island, and it goes up to Oahu. You can even go check. I got this one from just doing a quick search, but I went and looked. I mean, it does. It says it goes to Oahu. It goes back to one of the back islands and then brings it into the main island, Big Island. But look, it's going right across there, and it is coming off of Lompoc right there at the furthest point to the west. So it's coming off of somewhere right down here in Southern California, just north of LA, and it would make sense that it's coming off of here because this is the furthest land point over to the west, and they got a base right in here too, a military base right here, Vandenberg Air Force Base, where they do all the space launches. So it would just make sense to me that they would have it coming off of there because that's the military base. They could keep that under guard, patrol it there for the back and forth. It's a direct line across where the earthquake is. This would explain why they're hiding the earthquakes out here too. But there's another reason they would maybe hide the earthquakes out here. Because guess what everybody on the West Coast does when you find out that there's a new erupting volcano out in the ocean out here? Everybody freaks out. All the Joe normies start to freak out. They don't know that it doesn't really matter if there's an undersea eruption happening out there. It's not going to affect them on land. Unless it was just, the most stratospheric high blast that would send off some kind of tsunami or something. But that's not going to happen, I don't think, knock on wood. Instead, what we really need to do is look back and see what's going on across the whole area, because out here in Hawaii, Mauna Loa is on that quote-unquote heightened watch. The mainstream media really dropped the ball on that. They said it was a warning. It's not a warning. They're just watching it because of an earthquake swarm, but there's already the ongoing eruptive activity at Kilauea, and seismic is increasing across Hawaii, and then we can trace this back, the Hawaiian Island chain, and look where it goes to. It goes to the fracture zone that connects to where the earthquake is. So whether you want to think it's undersea cable meddling by someone, or whether you want to think it's volcanic in nature, or whether you want to think it's seismic in nature, we have three possibilities at this point. I'm not going to rule any one of them out, but I will tell you we could trace the fracture zone back to here. There's something going on down here in Hawaii, I already just mentioned, and we can trace this back to the north. Follow the Hawaiian Island chain back to the north, and then it curls back hard north, like an arrow shape, up into this, which is Kamchatka, Russia. And Melyi Semyayachik, this volcano that hasn't erupted since 1952, and we were doing nuke tests 3 weeks before it erupted out here in the Pacific. Operation Ivy is what it was called. 3 weeks before, and then this thing goes. Now guess what? The last time that went before was when we dropped the nukes on Japan. 3 weeks after we dropped the nukes on Japan in 1945, in early September, Melyi Semyayachik went. Now, it hadn't erupted since the 1800s. And then before that, the 1500s. So we drop nukes on Japan, then Melyi Semyayachik erupts. Then we do Operation Ivy out here, and Melyi Semyayachik erupts. Then it goes quiet for the last 60 years, basically. And now, on the same week that we're getting the return waves of HAARP, if you don't know, HAARP was reactivated on October 19th through October 29th at least, to ping signals off of the moon and Jupiter and back. And then they set up listening arrays at 10 megahertz, which they didn't set them up for HAARP. I mean, they are already out here in the Owens Valley of California and in New Mexico, next to Socorro, New Mexico. So Owens Valley, it's right out here in eastern California. Let me show it to you with all these rings. Geez. Okay, right there, right where the three earthquakes are, right at the center of the screen. That's Owens Valley, goes up to the north, and the array is right there to listen for the return signal of the signal from HAARP. Now, I told all my viewers this past week when they announced, or a week and a half ago, when they announced that this whole HAARP thing was going going from Jupiter to back, that we would look for new sudden volcanic activity that's not normal. And Melye Semaliachik suddenly shows back up. And now this undersea mount out here next to our undersea cables goes. And I still have to wonder, is it an undersea eruption or is it something else? Because you guys know there's other things going on, especially with these undersea cables. Look, man, this undersea cable thing cannot be a chance or a coincidence going back to that map or any of the other ones. I just drew the line, but I'll do it again. We're going to measure with a line measurement tool, which is going to do a perfectly straight line. Well, it'll do to the curvature of the Earth, but whatever. We're going to measure just from, let's just say, north of LA, somewhere in between north of LA and here. We'll just even put it right in the middle. But I would think it would come off of the most pinnacle point of the coast out here somewhere. But let's just say it's coming from somewhere further down. Just to play devil's advocate, let's go all the way down here to North LA, to Ventura, and draw a line across it over to Oahu. I bet it's going to be still similar. Where's Oahu? There it is. So let's just say it's coming in anywhere along the shores of eastern Oahu somewhere. It still is. I mean, look, whether we go just a little bit to the north, if we go a little bit to the north, it matches perfectly. And if we go down to LA, it's just right on it. I mean, come on. So our previous hidden 5.7 out here on September 12, 2017, now the earthquake that is reported, legitimately reported from the USGS. I zoom in on it, and we find undersea mounts there, as well as marked volcanoes, well, that don't have a name on them. Let's turn on our places and just see if there's any kind of, am I missing any kind of gallery information or anything that's going to give us an undersea mount name? No. This is literally an unnamed undersea mount. I guess I get to name it, right? Right? This volcano, I mean. Since I found it, right? I mean, maybe somebody else has already studied it. I don't want to take it from them, I mean, you see how many there are here. It's not like there's any shortage. Literally hundreds going all the way around. Now, I said that people on the West Coast freak out when eruptions get reported out off the coast. Let me give you an example of that. Back here was a place called the Axial Seamount. You see this? It's huge, right? See how many there are? Do you see how many hundreds there are just here in this one little shot? I could back it out. And it just goes on and on and on. There's just literally so many of them. This thing started to erupt back in 2015, and a 6.0 earthquake struck along with it right out here at the pinnacle tip of the Juan de Fuca fracture zone. And again, you can see how many undersea mounts there are. So it's not that big of a deal for it to erupt, right? Well, as soon as they put out the stories, guess who got a hold of it? The Lamestream Media, L-A-M-E, Lamestream Media. They got a hold of it, and they just went bonkers on it. Eruption off the West Coast. What does it mean? Tsunami threat incoming? Question mark? Let's consult our professionals. It was horrible. They made people on YouTube look reasonable. They made me look reasonable at the time where I was covering HAARP and everything else, which is just out of the ordinary. Anyway, so then the response was the public freaked out along the coast of Oregon and Washington and Northern California, and people started to sell their properties. Property values plummeted. I'm not kidding. Go look it up. Something like $1 billion in property values were lost during that time. I'm not kidding. So, and that was just with the announcement of the undersea eruption out here. Now you got a 6 out here next to the undersea cables at a time where the Russians and all that crap. Look, man, I'm just here to tell you something else happened to top this all off. We're going to trace this undersea mount chain back to the fracture zone, which is right next to it. Do you see the fracture zone that goes to the west? We're going to go back this way. Here. And do you see that yellow arrow? Do you see it? We're going to go over to the other side of the yellow arrow. Over to here. Wow. I got to bring this up since we're talking about hidden earthquakes. They've got this one, a 6, right? 5.9 to 6. 2 days ago, now 3. An earthquake struck here on the coast of Japan, right where the tip of the arrow is, right north of it, right next to this yellow arrow. And it was a 5.9 to 6. And I'm going to take you over to my YouTube page again and show you. We're going to go through my little pictures here. See this? See this one? See where I have the big red ring on the screen? The big red ring says deleted F5.9 to 6.0 2 days ago, now 3 days ago. But you see the arrows? Why is there a yellow arrow there, many people might ask if you're a new viewer? The yellow arrows have been here since we made the map. The yellow arrows are only used, and it's the only spot on the planet where you're going to find them. There's a back and forth like a tennis match that happens when there's a big amount of movement going on here. Last time I saw a big amount of movement going on here was, I think, 2015, and then before that, 2011. It's only happened a few times in the last decade that we get a back and forth like this. The reason the yellow arrow is there is because when the big one hit in Japan, the 9 with tsunami, for weeks and months afterwards, there was a back and forth that happened between the west coast of the United States and Japan. Same size quakes. After the big one. Up to 7s. Did you hear about them? The 7 that hit the west coast and caused a tsunami. You remember that? Oh, you might not remember it. You know why? Because the same day that 7.7 hit up here on the west coast, Hurricane Sandy was coming ashore on the east coast. Hurricane Frankenstorm, you remember that? Hurricane Sandy up in the northeast? And the mainstream media was pounding the drum on that hurricane. Then, same day, right before Halloween, boom, 7.7 hit. Now that was 2012. Now that 7.7 was a culmination of a back and forth that went on for a year almost. Well, a little over a year. So you don't remember most of those earthquakes. Why? Right? Because the media was busy covering with other stories. Everybody was earthquake worn out by then. And so they were doing their best to not report the earthquakes that were striking out there. However, they were not hiding them. They were actually still being reported. Now, what they couldn't hide after that, 2011, 2012, were all the 5s that were going across the United States, like Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. 5s at all the drill points going across the plate, and 6s on the west coast, on land. Upper 5s and 6s striking on land. They couldn't hide those. People were feeling them. Now, why would they hide any of it? They don't want the public to freak out, guys. Look, you just got to think like a regular normie. They freak out over everything. So you tell them about an eruption off the coast, they go sell their property for some reason. I'm like, I'll buy it. Well, I won't buy it. I don't have enough money now. I got to get some dental work done. But other than that, you know. Anyway, let's get back to it. So a 5.9 struck here 2 days ago. They hit it. The Europeans reported. I got on and talked about it. We measured it. And I had warned South Tokyo. I warned South Tokyo for a 6 to 6.5 and a 5.9 to 6 hit. Then the Europeans either got pressured to delete it or they just deleted it on their own, but the USGS didn't ever report it. Then people tried to tell me it must have been a mistake, but then they came back and put an earthquake on there, a 4.7. Now, there's this huge feud between me and the USGS. They called for my arrest and a bunch of other stuff. I got into it with the Department of Interior. They didn't want me doing forecasting publicly. They issued statements about me on Twitter. All kinds of stuff happened. It was crazy. Anyway, would they hide an earthquake and delete it? They did. It's not up for debate. Everybody saw it. I made a video on it. It's over on my YouTube channel from 3 days ago. Indisputable. And if anybody wants to deny it, look what I found. The 5.9 earthquake, which struck off the coast of Japan that I told you about, the one that was hidden from the public because it confirms the forecasting method, look what I found. Funny, people tried to accuse me of making this up. Let's go over and click on it. What does it say? Oh, that's right. Reuters reported on it. On October 28th into October 29th, the 5.9 that struck off the coast of frickin' Japan that they hid. See, what happened was the earthquake struck, and the mainstream media has an auto earthquake generating reporting system to get it out quicker than everybody else, especially Reuters, and it went and generated the earthquake news on it. And here's the address if you want to see it, Reuters.com, World Asia Pacific. They released this to the people in Asia, but not the people in the United States. Or the people in Japan. It struck out in the ocean. It's the proverbial, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? And actually the logical answer is no. No, it doesn't make a sound. A sound is something that people hear or that's heard. But I propose to you that it generates an audio wave regardless of whether or not somebody's there. And that audio wave will go and ricochet off the trees and the rock, and it could even cause a rock slide. If the tree falls in the woods and makes a big vibration, right? So it doesn't need to be heard by somebody to be an audio wave that's, right? It's just a matter of semantics again. It's a matter of just splitting hairs. So if you're going to hide an earthquake, the best place to do it is out in the ocean, where nobody's going to feel it, nobody's going to care. Why would they hide an earthquake over in Japan? because it confirms the earthquake forecasting method. I issued a warning for it, and they're fighting with me publicly over it. So then, as if some kind of fate hits, as if karma comes back and serves it back up to them, boom, earthquake hits out over here. And it gets picked up by all sorts of seismic networks from colleges up and down the coast. And next thing you know, it gets reported. Now, if they delete it, say it's a mistake, it'll be the second earthquake they delete in 2 days' time that are both 6.0s on both sides of the plate. So if they delete it, that's hilarious. That's worth making a video on in its own right. And if they don't delete it, it's still worth making a video on and telling everybody about the undersea cable, the undersea volcano there, the undersea fracture zone that goes out over to the west and meets up with the Hawaiian Island chain that's blowing with new volcanic activity, Melia, Semyonich, HAARP, and the arrival of the waves back over the past several days. Now that's stopped, and next thing you know, off our west coast. And again, they're listening in California for some reason. Well, there it is. Undersea cable, I don't know. That's speculation on my part. If data gets cut out there, you know why. If you lose your data connection out in Hawaii, or you lose any kind of connection out in Hawaii from undersea cable, now you know why. Otherwise, I'm going to attribute it towards the volcano right next to it. The volcanoes, plural. And I'm going to attribute it to seismic, because on one side of the plate, just no more than 3 days ago, 5.9 to 6.0 earthquake struck right off the coast here. Now, 5.9 to 6.0 earthquake strikes opposite side of the plate as the plate is majorly moving. Hawaii is moving in the middle, and I haven't even gone to look at the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center yet. Let's go do that. Why not? Sabancaya in Peru, Sanjay in Ecuador, Nevado del Ruiz volcano in Colombia, Popocatépetl in Mexico, Fuego in Guatemala, Bagana in Papua New Guinea again, another 7,000 foot eye blast. That's pretty small. Ebico in the Kuril Islands, Sabancaya. Anybody new? Anybody new on the list? That's all we need to see. Is there anybody new? The other ones I've already mentioned. Bagana is the only one that's kind of popped back on the list lately. Okay, all right. This is just today's list, so that's a pretty long list for today. Back to it, guys, one more time. 6.0 earthquake off the west coast. This fulfills the forecast, by the way, for the west coast. Even though this is technically more than 200 miles off. Again, how many? It's probably 1,000 miles. What do you think that is? 1,000 miles off the coast? It's way far. I'm trying to get it down to 200, but man, it's spot on. Hold on, let's just measure over, see how far it is. Because, again, I warned right down here in Southern California and up in Northern California. 3 different 5s are due. And this adds up perfectly, but let's just see. Oh, I was close. 976. 930 to 970 here. Hold on. Right down to the coast. Wow, it's almost exactly 950 miles off the coast of California. Okay, so I'm trying to get it down to 200. That's way, way, way far, but it's parallel to what I'm looking for. I'm not going to say that's the earthquake we're looking for. It's too far, guys. I would look for something over here next, over the next several days. Look, with the 6 out here, what more do you want? There's proof of something coming across. Whether it's military, maybe it's just a sub laying a cable, right? Wait, they don't lay cables with subs. Although that's a good idea, isn't it? Why? You know? Why do it from a ship? Why not do it from a submarine? Wouldn't it be easier? Big old roll of cable on the back of the sub. Oh, man, I'm such a nerd. But now, I want you guys to understand something. That to have an earthquake right where the cable would be stretched, because they're going to do it linear. They're not going to go zigzag around these canyons. I do not understand. Personally, I still to this day do not quite understand how they lay undersea cable down on the seafloor. Because, again, when you're going over areas like this, and you're going over undersea ridges that are like this, again, the cable's just going to be like laying across mountain top. It's just many questions have to be answered on that for me scientifically. But anyway, we'll get back to it. The earthquakes are right below where the cable would stretch if you did a linear stretch straight from where they say it comes off the shores over to Oahu. It's a perfect matchup, perfectly. And with the volcanoes there, we've got to talk about it one more time. The plethora, the number of volcanoes here is phenomenal. I mean, there is a lot that are here. We don't get this all the way across the Pacific like that. Sometimes you get big open. Look up here, for instance. This is well imaged up here. You see the difference. So there's well-imaged, I mean, you can see the pockmarks that are well-imaged. So the difference between a big, open, expansive, vast area without volcanic, and then you get down here next to where our earthquake is, and it's just nothing but a bunch of undersea volcanoes. Look how many there are just right through here. You can see the craters on some of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's like 9 or 10 just right there. Again, hold on, let me zoom in. Do you see them? They're small. They're only a few thousand feet high. Each one's a few thousand feet high, so this one's 2,000 feet high or 1,500 feet high off the seafloor. This one is another 1,500 feet high off the seafloor. Those two right there. But, I mean, come on, they're just all over the place. So they're likely as one erupting. Seismically, I mean, that's what we would land on this earthquake towards the seismic end of it and not the volcanic end of it. Let's go look it up and see what the actual origin details are for the magnitudes. Weighted magnitude, body magnitude, they're not showing us on, but let's just go down the list on body magnitude. This is going to show us slightly smaller, actually. Body normally shows us slightly smaller on the magnitude range, but what I do on this is I throw out the high end and I throw out the low end. So, for instance, we're just going to go down the list, and we're going to see the highest on the list and the lowest on the list. We'll throw those out. What that does is give us a good broad swath of what's in the middle, and that's most likely what the earthquake is, body magnitude-wise. So, highest on the list, I mean, we start out right at the top at 6.2s and 6.3s. If we go any higher than that, look, for instance, 6.8 detected. Now, we'll throw that out. Same with the 6.4. If I see a bunch of 7s on the list or something, I'll think they're doing something crazy with the downgrades, but let's just go down the list even further. So, I mean, the highest so far, 6.8, upper 6. So we're going to toss all those out. Okay, we're also going to toss out the upper 5s. So what does that leave us with? Well, like a 6.0 to 6.1. So it's a good way to just look at all the stations and see if the USGS is kind of sticking to the guns on what the stations are showing. Or are they going in some, is an egghead in a cubicle coming in and downgrading it to, calm the public kind of thing? Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now, don't be scared. Just don't be scared. We don't have to add the be prepared part on this. You can just don't be scared on this earthquake because, first of all, it's 900 miles out off the coast of California. However, it's at these undersea mounts and the undersea cable. So that's what I'd be more concerned about at this point. I'd be more concerned about watching for other eruptive activity, which we already are over here at Hawaii. And need I mention what happened up and down the West Coast over the past 2 months? Do you know? Starting with Mount Shasta, the underground fires. I'm doing the bunny quote ear thing. The quote unquote underground fires. And they weren't underground. They were up. Well, there was steam coming up from underground. And it was up at the top of the mountain. They tried to say it was underground fire activity. And we asked what was burning. Then they came back and said it was lava tubes that must be burning. And we all said, what could be down in lava tubes that's burning? Not roots from trees, that's for sure. That was Mount Shasta. Then I found the webcams and we were looking at it live and we saw it coming out of the ground up above tree level. Then they turned off the webcams. People complained. They said, what? They turned off the webcams, they turned them back on, they moved them all. So you couldn't see it. That's where it started. Then we went up the coast. Then Mount Rainier, a person in the mainstream media noticed that the top of Mount Rainier had some kind of steam coming out of it. They made a post on it on social media, and other people in the mainstream media, plus professionals, jumped down their throats and instantly came in cover mode and said it was a lenticular cloud, not to worry. Then fires mysteriously broke out around Mount St. Helens at the same time, around the same time. And then an earthquake swarm hit Mount St. Helens, earthquake swarm hit Mount Rainier. Down to the south, earthquake swarm struck at Mount Hood, and now a new earthquake swarm just struck at Mount Lassen volcano. This is all in the last week, the earthquake swarms. The fires were over the past couple of weeks, going back to 2 months ago when Shasta started. Hawaii also started around the time that Shasta was going. Kilauea returned with new eruptive activity at around the same time that Shasta was having its thing going on, and they turned off the cams. That was a few months ago. Kilauea came back. Now, it's just been going almost every single day. I do have a slight change for my Hawaiian viewers that we do have to talk about. Do you see these earthquakes here? They're raised slightly high off the globe. Now, I can tell you this. We normally don't see earthquakes raised even slightly off the globe here in Hawaii. Normally, they're very shallow, hugging the earth. They're not sticking up very far in little pokes off like pin cushions off the earth here. Now, deep earthquakes at the 60-kilometer range, let's just make sure about that. 61, and these down here are at, looks like in the 40 to 50 range, 30, 40, and 50 kilometer. 30, 40, 50, and 60 kilometer range down below Hawaii. We got something going on now. Look at it. You guys see that? Longtime viewers, look. This is only for longtime viewers to notice this. Something's going on in Hawaii, we know that, and something's going on here now over to the east at these undersea mounts. Whether it's data cable related or not, I don't know. Now, I do have to bring something up. This used to be in the realm of conspiracy theory now, but now it's pretty much proved. Speaking of the data cables, the Russians claimed credit for the Japan earthquake in 2011 and the tsunami. Their head of their Congress, their Duma as they call it, went on TV now 11 years ago and took credit for it. And I've got that video over on my channel from just a couple days ago. I replayed it a few days ago when everybody was talking about Russia and the data cables overseas. Data cables overseas now over in Europe. Well, now here we are, and right next to our data cables, something goes on with an earthquake. Well, Russia's guy said that they had a silent weapon that could sink continents, and he took credit for the earthquake in Japan. Do they have the ability to remotely detonate volcanoes and earthquakes? I think yes. And not just them. I know there's going to be a lot of people who don't agree with that, and it is still technically in the realm of conspiracy, but not theory anymore. I mean, now there's been actual studies, studies, not really studies. There's been conjecture by scientists about how it could be possible and how it could be done. I'm not saying that's what's going on. I'm just saying that it's possible, and they took credit for it. That's indisputable. They did take credit for it and said they caused it, or he raised his shoulders, he's like, taking credit for it without taking credit for it. He basically threatened it. So there it is, an earthquake striking at our data cables next to an undersea mount volcano. Hawaii's going into overdrive. I've got a warning going in Southern California, Central California, and Northern California for 3 separate 5s to hit. If you don't know about my warnings, I have a warning going in Napa Valley, up here just north of this 4 or 3.8, Napa Valley, Northern California, for a 5. We have a warning for a simultaneous second 5 or around the same time down here at Ridgecrest. By the end of this coming week, also, we should expect something near 5, 4.9, to strike down by Salton Sea Volcano by San Diego. So far, none of the 3 earthquakes have hit. I issued the warning yesterday in my forecast, but we have 7 days in the forecast. But now this strikes right off the west coast. Well, 900 miles, which is, geologically speaking, right off the west coast when you think about the rest of the planet. Back to it, guys. A big earthquake off the west coast. I cannot ignore it. And I cannot ignore the data cable connection either. I'm glad I decided to look it up and see if they were there. What made me look it up? That's the weird thing. Nobody told me to. Just got this wild idea in my mind again. It's just like, hey, you should go look. It's like looking up the nuke test. Like, what made me look that up? Nobody's whispering in my ear, I don't think. If they are, it's in a high frequency I can't hear. Okay, anyway, all right. So I'm not trying to weird you out, but I am going to tell you, with the data cables there does seem to be a slight possibility that this could be related to something else entirely. But I'm not going to fully go out on a limb on that. I'm just going to tell you, it's there, right there. And to ignore it would be pretty weird. Same with the volcano. The volcanoes are right there. And the hidden earthquakes that are previously there, those are right there. All of those things are indisputable. I could go on. This update could carry on. I mean, we've got a warning going over in Europe for a potential extremely large earthquake in Italy. And since then, look what's hit. The whole mid-Atlantic ridge has started to light up with 4s and mid-range 4s. North Italy is lit up with all mid-range 3s, 3.3, 3.2, and another 3.3. And we have a warning going in central Italy for the potential of up to 6.8 6.1 to 6.5. And that's assuming this deep earthquake is accurate. I talked about that in my update yesterday. China, here's another one. China, guys, take a look at this. So all of a sudden, China, we have a warning going on right here for probably the largest earthquake in China in many years' time. I issued it yesterday, the warning. Now this has happened. All the way around the region, literally all the way around it, coming out like a stepping stone path out of Sumatra, Indonesia, down here, and going up, following the arrows perfectly, and bending over to the west, following the arrows. Let me show you really quick before we get out of here, because this actually matters for the people who are over in China. I know I have a few viewers there, and there's people that live here that have relatives there and so forth. But you can see it. Go over to the west, following the plate boundary, the red line. The earthquakes are making that bend. But USGS map has Jack squat across Russia and North China, right? Well, look what we've got. Coming out of here, where our deep earthquake is, down below. Coming across, following the arrow. Going right down to Afghanistan. We're like a pincher. We're coming together in two spots. We're coming out of Indonesia, down here, following this curvature up into China. And we're coming across where the USGS doesn't have anything marked. But that's the craton edge, the interior of the plate. It's not a plate boundary. So we've got pressure coming in from up here, or a wave. And we have a wave coming in from down here, and they're both intersecting right here. And lo and behold, the next day after I issue the warning, this all comes into play. It's being pinchered right now. Now, on the back side of it is where the warning is. However, 200 miles is just a small stretch in here. 200 miles will basically take us just across this brown splotch right here. So, I mean, if I'm trying to get it down to 200, but it's looking like it could break anywhere from between Taklamakan Desert and all the way back down here. But we'll see. If I have to adjust it, I will. There could be some good news on this, and that's that the flow might go right over to Afghanistan and strike with our 6 out in rural North Afghanistan or South Tajikistan or Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan? I can't say it proper. Kyrgyzstan. What the... I'm from Kyrgyzstan sometimes, right, trolls? Okay, so let's go over to the west really quick and just talk about our final thing that's going on here, which is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It's being compressed. It's starting to show. It's going all the way around the planet, and this is just one day's worth of earthquakes. Look at 2. It really is. Even people who've never seen this before should be able to at least trace that this is a line of quakes that goes and makes a hard bend to the north and then a hard bend to the west. Right? Like, even people who've never seen it before. Oh, and then it also makes a branch up towards Japan. And then you come compare this, and you're like, whoa, hold on, it's following that line. Now, you know what's weird? Professionals said this couldn't happen. That's why I'm in such deep crap with everybody. Because professionals themselves said there was no spread following the plate boundaries or anything. They said earthquakes were completely random all over the planet. Turns out they're following the plate boundaries literally like rivers. And we get the same sized earthquakes. Even the USGS map kind of shows it here, with just one day's worth of quakes. We get the same sized earthquakes. What is this, 5.4? What's this one? 5.1? Spread out across a huge distance. There should be another 5.1 to 5.4 that strikes up in Alaska, for instance. Next. Stepping stone path heading over towards Alaska. Hey, look, a little earthquake just hit Alaska. As I said, Alaska. That freaks me out. When that happens, I know it's time to sign off. As soon as I start naming the area, I'm like, hey, it's going to go up to Alaska. But ding! I don't have the earthquake machine. I promise. My name's not Tesla. Okay, all right. And that's a good way to wrap this up, actually. Tell you the story of Tesla and the earthquake machine in New York City. Nikola Tesla made an actual earthquake-causing device. And it was called an oscillator, as he called it. And he had a laboratory in New York City. And you can look up the patent for this device, the oscillator. And it literally oscillated. It went back and forth. And he hooked it up to the frame of the building that he was in. He was in a multi-story steel frame structure brick stack building. And he hooked it up to the frame of the building just to have it something to anchor to. And he turned it on. And it started going. And it picked up revolutions per minute, or oscillations per second, I guess. And they then cut the power to it, and it didn't shut off. It kept going. So it kept going, and then all of a sudden the building started to wobble and shake. And then the whole block immediately started to wobble and shake along with the building, and it caused a mini earthquake in the neighborhood. He then had to take some kind of hammer or something and bash the device apart to get it to stop. Okay? This is a true story. You can go look it up. This isn't my take on it. He had to bash the device to get it to stop. Then the cops came. Or, well, the authorities. I don't know who came, but somebody came to their laboratory and tried to find out what's going on. And he denied any great guy, right? You know? No, what? Me? Earthquake? No. Everybody's in there running around screaming. Okay. Anyway, isn't that a great story? Yeah, look it up, man. His laboratory in New York, earthquake machine. And the patent that exists on it. Oh, he didn't call it the earthquake machine. He called it the oscillator. It just caused earthquakes by accident. We would call it the earthquake machine. Anyway, do you guys have an earthquake plan? You know, you can't have your own earthquake machine. I would recommend not having one. People hold you responsible for earthquakes. If they hit, you get blamed. But you need to know what to do when an earthquake hits. And this is just no-brainer stuff. I tell this to all the new viewers and everybody else. Just try to pound it in your head. You need to know what to do when a quake hits, which means take shelter. Now, there'll be many times where an earthquake hits and it's in the middle of the night. So you might want to have a set of shoes by the side of your bed or hard-bottom slippers, because you know how many things fall on floors during earthquakes. Sometimes they'll break. Next thing you know, you got glass across the floor. It's the middle of the night. Power's out. You're going to want those slippers or shoes right by the side of your bed. And it'll come in handy for anything from if an alarm goes off and you got to get out and go see if there's somebody there, or if there's a fire and you need to book it out of the building, at least you'll have some shoes on. You might coming out of bed, you might just be in your PJs or less, but at least you have some shoes on, right? Anyway, you guys will make the appropriate decisions of what to do for around your house, you know, things to have around that you can readily get to. I would also recommend the emergency kit. I do in every update. I don't sell any of that stuff, but you need to have one. And again, the emergency kit is just coverall for if you're caught without power, or you're caught outside or stuck inside for a period of time. Change of clothes, set of shoes, seasonal specific, of course. Food and water for a few days. The water might be a little bit more difficult. You might have to get a hand pump or something like that, a purifier, that kind of thing. But food can be solved. Granola bars and fruit roll-ups, candy bars and high energy sugars and granola, that would be great. They're prepackaged, lightweight. You could put a lot of them into a bag. Almost everybody around will at least eat them if you're hungry. And what else? I mean, just flashlight, batteries, ID, first aid kit. The first aid kit. And medicines. Oh, God, the medicines. Okay, you're probably going to want the medicines more than the first aid kit. You're going to want some aspirin. You're going to want some aspirin. You're going to want just all the basics covered. So you don't want the full med kit, but something that'll get you through in the case of a disaster for a few days. All right, so yeah, make sure you've got all that stuff taken care of. I'm not trying to harp on you too hard, but you can clearly see we've got a lot of seismic. You can see we have a deep earthquake in Europe, which is rare. You can see we have an extremely rare earthquake off the west coast of the United States. And that's just the start of this. We're actually going through an uptick in seismic. But I've got good news for you. This is half the amount of the most I've ever seen. The most earthquake activity I've ever seen so far in doing this was 2017 into 2018. Hundreds of deep earthquakes. Thousands of 4s and 5s. And hundreds of, what was it, hundreds of 6s? It was a lot. Let me put it this way. In any given week, we would see, let's see, this week we've got 1,875 earthquakes for the week. In 2017 into 2018, we had 5,000. It maxed out the Earthquake 3D feed. Earthquake 3D it turns out won't go higher than 5,000 earthquakes on the feed at once. I mean, who would think it would ever need to, right? So we saw 5,000 in a week just in 2017. And then the biggest earthquakes I've seen in the last decade were 2011 at the height of solar. When we were going through the solar maximum, the end of solar maximum, we were having multiple X-class flares, multiple M-class flares per day. Most were Earth-directed. It was like being in a ship on a stormy sea. in 2011 when the Japan earthquake happened and all the other big ones happened. The 8s that hit over in the Indo-Australian plate also hit within the same year of the Japan quake. At the end of the solar maximum, then we came out of solar maximum and went down, down, down solar-wise. Next to nothing for years. Here we are. We're 10 years later. We went through the solar minimum. Now we're starting to climb back up out of the solar minimum for the next 10 years. And over the next 10 years, we go from solar minimum back up to solar max. So by 2032, we will be in solar max again. But right now, we're coming up. Think of it like a roller coaster. We just went, in 2011, we were at the peak. We're going down, 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 down. And around 2019, 2020, 2021, we hit the bottom. And now we're coming back up. And as we go back up, guess what increases along with the solar? Seismic. And that's charged particles hitting the Earth. It gets into a long, I could talk for another 30, 45 minutes on this. The charged particles, the solar wind, the combined force of that, plus the actual electrical charge of that, gets absorbed by the Earth and taken down into the plates. And then you get a reaction, an earthquake reaction, and sometimes volcanic reaction, as those charged particles go down into the crust and then, of course, ultimately go down to the core of the Earth, come back up. And that's a good place to leave it. Big earthquake on the West Coast. Something to keep watch on in the next several days. If you hear anybody talking about tsunamis or anything like that could come off this, I don't think there will be any tsunamis on this unless there's some kind of major undersea blast that goes on there. And if that happens, all those data cables are going to get cut for sure. Too fishy on those data cables. Man, a lot going on, guys. There is a lot going on. All right, let's save this and get this out over on YouTube. I'm going to premiere this back over on YouTube in just a few minutes. And by the way, let me thank everybody on Twitch and on YouTube for supporting my operation. If you're on YouTube, you're watching, I record these live in front of my Twitch studio audience. You see their chat room scrolling by here on the screen. And if you're watching on Twitch, you can come back and re-watch this over on YouTube after I finish here live. I go upload to YouTube. You can watch it back. Share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. Okay, I will be here, and if anything else hits, I'll be back on. Peace out.